It's not love. It's a loop. And it's been running your life far longer than he has. You think you miss him. You think the ache in your chest is about him not texting back, about him choosing someone else, or leaving you unread. But that ache, it was there long before he showed up. This isn't about the man. It's about the pattern. A familiar ache disguised as connection. A cycle dressed up as chemistry. You didn't fall in love. You fell into something older, something that has been waiting for a face to wear. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like you're stuck in the same story, just with different characters? You meet someone. It starts with fire. A glance that makes your stomach drop. A message that lights you up. And for a moment, it feels like this time, it's finally going to be different. But then, the silence creeps in. The questions, the second guessing, the shrinking. You wait, you overthink, you replay every detail, and still, he slips through your fingers. It's like your heart is chasing something it can't name, and no matter how hard you try to do it right, it ends the same way. You start to wonder, is it me? Let's pause right there. Because this isn't about being too much or not enough. It's not about what you said, how you looked, or how quickly you responded. This is about something deeper. You're not addicted to him. You're addicted to the rhythm your nervous system has mistaken for love. The unpredictability, the inconsistency, the tiny moments of hope between long stretches of doubt. That emotional roller coaster has become your normal. Your body remembers this kind of love. Love that makes you reach, that keeps you hungry, that gives just enough to make you stay, but never enough to make you feel safe. And here's the hardest truth. A part of you believes that if you can just win this version of love, then maybe finally you'll be enough. That's the trap. This isn't just about wanting someone. It's about proving something. To yourself, to your past, to the little girl who once felt invisible and decided deep down that love was something she had to earn. You were never taught to recognize peace. You were taught to fight for attention, to mistake tension for passion, to call longing love. But what if I told you that the ache you feel isn't about him walking away? It's about you abandoning yourself every time you chase someone who can't see you. You see, we don't repeat patterns because we're broken. We repeat them because on some level they feel like home, even if they hurt, even if they tear us apart. This is your wake-up call. You're not broken. You're not needy. You're not crazy. You're caught in a loop that started long before this relationship, and you're starting to notice. That noticing? That's your power. If this feels familiar, if your heart is tired of chasing, of shrinking, of waiting to be chosen, then stay with me, because this is not the end of your story. It's the moment you stop surviving the pattern and start breaking it. You think you're reacting to him, to what he did, to how he made you feel. But here's the truth that stings a little before it sets you free. You're not reacting to this one man. You're reacting to the ghost behind him, the phantom you never saw, but always felt. Every time he pulls away and you chase. Every time he comes close, then disappears. Every time you feel like you're standing in a room where the light keeps flickering on and off, you're not losing your mind. You're responding to a script that was written long before this relationship ever began. There's something deep in your body that recognizes the push and pull. It doesn't make sense to your head, but it feels like home to your heart. Why? Because when you were younger, maybe a child, maybe a teenager, you were taught to equate love with effort. You learned that you had to reach, to please, to fix, to be perfect. That love was something you earned by bending, by staying quiet, by never needing too much. That was never love. That was survival. But survival has a cost. And for many women, The price is self-abandonment. You became the peacekeeper, the over-apologizer, the one who stays calm while storms rage around you. Because somewhere in the past, love came with conditions. And now, without realizing it, you chase after those same conditions, hoping that this time, if you do it right, you'll finally be enough to stay loved. That's the phantom. That's the curtain you're starting to pull back. He didn't create the pain. He activated it. He became the mirror. Not because he meant to, but because something inside you was already carrying that ache, that fear, that deep belief that you had to be chosen to matter. What if that belief never belonged to you? What if you inherited it from a mother who taught you that quiet suffering was strength? From a father who only noticed you when you got it perfect? From a world that told you to smile more, need less, and always stay soft, no matter how hard it got? You were shaped, molded, programmed, and now you're waking up to the realization that the pattern is not truth, it's just repetition. There's nothing wrong with you for wanting connection, for craving closeness. That desire is sacred. But when it gets twisted into a performance, a game of, if I just do more, maybe he'll finally love me, you lose yourself. And that's the part no one talks about, the grief of realizing you've been handing your heart to people who were never meant to hold it. This isn't about blame. This is about awareness. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And the more you name it, the less power it has. So let's name it. This ache you carry, it started long before you knew what romantic love even was. Maybe it was in a house where affection came in unpredictable waves, where you had to read moods before you even understood your own, where your needs were labeled dramatic or too much, and so you buried them. That's when the pattern began. That's when the phantom started wearing different faces, different names. And now, here you are, grown, wise, self-aware, and yet somehow still drawn to the same emotional landscape, the same unsteady ground. That is not weakness. That is memory. Your nervous system remembers what your mind has tried to forget. But here's the turning point. The moment you stop asking, why doesn't he want me? And start asking, why do I keep wanting someone who feels just out of reach? That's when the spell breaks. That's when you step out of the performance. This is your moment, your mirror, your quiet revolution. No one taught you this because no one taught them. But now, the pattern ends with you. You are allowed to want love that feels steady. You are allowed to stop romanticizing emotional crumbs. You are allowed to outgrow the phantom behind the curtain, because you are not here to be chosen. You are here to choose. And when you finally choose yourself consistently, clearly, and without apology, you stop chasing people who make you feel like a question mark, and you start attracting people who see you as the answer. Stay with me. We're just getting to the part where you remember who you really are. There's a certain kind of chaos that can trick you into thinking it's love. You feel your heart racing, your thoughts spiraling, your stomach dropping with every unread message. And somewhere in that storm, a part of you whispers, this must mean he matters. This must mean it's real. But what if it's not love you're feeling? What if it's just a loop, an emotional pattern dressed up in romance, wearing all the right masks? You're not drawn to him because of who he is. You're drawn to the unpredictability, the intensity, the way he gives you just enough to hope and never enough to feel safe. It's not chemistry, it's tension. It's not connection, it's confusion. And you've mistaken that for passion, because calm feels unfamiliar. Steady feels suspicious. Peace feels like boredom, when your first experiences of love came wrapped in anxiety. No one talks about this. No one warns you that if you grew up equating love with uncertainty, your body will crave that same uncertainty, even when your mind knows it hurts. You may say you want someone stable, someone consistent, Someone who sees you, but when they show up, something inside you pulls away. You feel restless. You question it. You sabotage it. Not because you don't want love, but because your nervous system only trusts what it knows. And what it knows is the chase. It knows that sickening rush when he finally texts back, that adrenaline spike when he looks at you like you're everything for a moment, the feeling of being needed, desired, then discarded, again and again. That cycle becomes its own addiction, not to him, but to the emotional high and crash you've come to mistake for intimacy. So you replay the same story, with a different name, a different face, but the same ache. And each time, it takes a little more from you. Each time, you try a little harder, shrink a little more, give up a piece of your truth in the name of love. But deep down, you know it's not love. Not the kind that makes you feel grounded and whole. Not the kind that lets you breathe. It's the loop, and it's clever. It keeps you guessing, keeps you hungry, keeps you thinking that if you can just fix this one thing, just be a little more patient, a little more chill, a little more whatever, then maybe, just maybe, this time you'll win the game. But there is no winning, because love isn't supposed to be a game, and your worth is not up for negotiation. Here's what most people never realize. When you're stuck in that loop, it's not about the person in front of you. It's about the unfinished story inside you, the old wound that never got to heal. The belief that love has to hurt in order to matter. Somewhere in your past, someone taught you that love means proving yourself, that it means tolerating emotional whiplash, that it means being the one who holds it all together, even when you're falling apart. And now, without even realizing it, you find yourself chasing people who make you feel the same way. But you can only chase someone who's running. And love should not require that much running. There is nothing romantic about losing yourself for someone else. There is no glory in loving someone who makes you question your own value. And I know it's hard to walk away when the loop feels like home. It's hard to let go when you've built your identity around being the one who tries. But trying is not the same as thriving. And you deserve more than emotional scraps dressed up as passion. You deserve something quiet, solid, something that feels like a full breath, not a tight chest, something that doesn't make you second-guess yourself every time you speak your truth. But that kind of love can only meet you once you stop running after the kind that keeps you spinning. The loop will whisper that you're just being too sensitive, that you're asking for too much, that you're lucky to be loved at all. Do not believe it. That voice is not truth, it's just echo. You are not here to beg for love. You are here to be met. And the first step, recognizing that what you've been calling love was really a pattern, a well-worn path that always leads to the same dead end. But now you see it. And once you see it, you don't have to keep walking it. You are not addicted to him. You're addicted to the drama, the unpredictability, the emotional roller coaster that once passed for love. But now, you're ready to step off that ride. Stay with me. The moment you stop mistaking chaos for connection is the moment everything starts to change. There's a moment quiet, unremarkable on the outside, where something shifts inside you. Maybe it happens while you're lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, heart heavy but strangely calm. Maybe it's in the silence after another argument, another goodbye that did not need to be so loud. Whatever sparks it, the truth finally rises. I can't keep doing this to myself. That's when you meet the mirror. Not the kind that shows you your face, but the one that shows you your truth. The version of you that has been quietly waiting beneath the layers of performing, pleasing, and pretending. She's not angry. She's not bitter. But she is done. Done betraying her own needs to keep the peace. Done calling crumbs a feast. Done begging to be seen in rooms that demand she shrink to fit. And for the first time you see her. Not the girl who keeps getting hurt, but the woman who is waking up. The woman who is starting to remember who she was before the pain taught her to disappear. This isn't about becoming someone new. This is about unlearning the lies you were told and the ones you started telling yourself. Lies like, I need to be wanted to feel worthy. Lies like, if he comes back, it means I mattered. Lies like, maybe I just need to be more patient, more chill, more easy to love. You don't need to be more anything. You need to be more you, the real you, the one with boundaries, with clarity, with a heart that no longer folds in half to make others comfortable. But here's the thing about awakening: it hurts before it heals. There's grief in growth, because you're not just letting go of him, you're letting go of the version of yourself that clung to him, the part that believed love had to look like sacrifice. That being chosen meant proving your worth. When you pull back the curtain and finally meet the girl behind the patterns, you don't shame her, you don't rush her, you sit with her, you listen. Because she's been carrying the weight of an unfinished story for years. She wanted safety but was told to settle. She wanted truth but was taught to tolerate. She wanted to be loved but learned to perform instead. And now, here you are, noticing, naming, choosing something different. That's the beginning of everything. This is the part no one prepares you for: the sacred in between. You are no longer the version of you who begged for breadcrumbs, but you haven't fully stepped into the one who walks away from the table that starves her. So you wobble, you second guess, you grieve. That's not weakness, that's rebuilding. You begin again in the smallest ways. You catch yourself before you send the message you know you'll regret. You pause before making excuses for his behavior. You notice the tightness in your chest and realize for the first time you don't have to ignore it. You start to trust your own discomfort as a signal, not a flaw. You understand that anxiety isn't always something to fix. Sometimes it's your soul screaming that you're betraying yourself again. And slowly, you start to choose differently. Not loudly, not perfectly, but consistently. You start to speak up when something feels off. You stop apologizing for your needs. You begin to believe that if someone walks away because you honored your truth, then maybe they were not meant to hold it in the first place. This is the power of meeting your inner mirror. She does not ask you to become better. She asks you to remember. Because underneath the patterns, beneath the pain, is a woman who already knows who she is. She has just been drowned out by noise. And now, she is learning to speak again. Her voice may shake at first, but it is steadying. Her steps may be unsure, but they are moving forward, because she knows now there is nothing romantic about being invisible in your own story. You are not a question mark waiting for someone to answer you. You are the answer you've been waiting for. And it was never about being chosen by him. It was always about choosing yourself. Not once, not just when it feels easy, but every time the old pattern knocks on your door, promising familiarity, begging you to forget what you've learned. You look in the mirror and say, I remember. I see you. I choose you. And that changes everything. Stay with me. The real love story is just beginning, and it starts with you. What if I told you the way you love, the way you ache, chase, and overextend, didn't even start with you? That ache in your chest, the fear of being too much or not enough, the instinct to prove your worth instead of simply owning it, that didn't come from nowhere. You didn't wake up one day and decide love should feel like tension, or that affection should arrive only after sacrifice. These were not personal choices. They were inherited. Long before you learned how to speak your needs, you absorbed someone else's silence. You watched how your mother moved through the world. Maybe she smiled through pain. Maybe she gave too much and called it strength. Maybe she taught you that love was staying even when your heart was breaking. You don't have to remember the details to carry the imprint. Sometimes the pattern you repeat is not yours, but hers. It passes down like an old story, told without words, a silent inheritance. And the most painful part, no one warns you that you're carrying it. You just feel it, deep in your bones. The urge to fix, to please, to stay quiet when you want to scream, to chase after people who make you feel invisible because somewhere, somehow, you were taught that this is what love looks like. This is the moment you realize the pattern didn't begin with you, but it can end with you. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are a living thread in a much older tapestry, woven by women who did what they had to do to survive. And now, you get to decide if survival is the only story you'll pass on. That's not easy. There is grief in unlearning. It means looking at the people you love and seeing their wounds more clearly than ever before. It means forgiving without excusing. It means honoring what they carried while refusing to keep carrying it yourself. You may have grown up in a home where emotions were swallowed, not shared, where affection had to be earned, where vulnerability was seen as weakness. So when someone makes you feel small, you don't run, you reach. When someone pulls away, you try harder. When someone confuses you, you assume it's your fault. But none of this was ever about your worth. It was about your wiring. And that wiring, it can change. The first spark of change is awareness. That moment you pause and ask, is this mine, or did I inherit it? You start to see the repetition for what it is, a defense, a strategy, a familiar rhythm that once kept someone else safe. You trace it back, maybe to the way your mom stayed in a marriage that drained her, or how your older sister learned to please everyone just to feel loved, or the way your culture taught you that silence was dignity and endurance was love. You realize you've been reenacting their survival without ever giving yourself permission to write your own version of thriving. That realization, it's everything, because now you see the pattern, but you're no longer trapped inside it. You begin to make different choices, not because you suddenly feel brave or healed, but because something in you is done repeating a story that never felt true in the first place. It starts with the tiniest moments, saying no without guilt, not apologizing for taking up space, refusing to chase people who only love you when it's convenient. You begin to walk through the fire of your old beliefs, and on the other side, you find yourself. The you that doesn't need to prove anything. The you that is no longer performing someone else's expectations. The you that remembers stillness, safety, and softness are not weaknesses but home. And maybe for the first time, you feel the weight of generations lifting off your shoulders, not because you've escaped it all, but because you've finally faced it. You are not here to carry the pain of those who came before you. You are here to break the cycle with compassion and begin again with clarity. And when you do, something shifts in the lineage. The women who came before you, the ones who never had this language, this freedom, this voice, they feel it, because healing is not just personal. It's ancestral. When one woman wakes up, something in all of us rises with her. So when you feel that old fear creeping in, the one that says you're being selfish, dramatic, ungrateful, pause. Ask yourself, is this fear even mine, or is it borrowed? You'll be surprised how often the answer is borrowed. You were not put on this earth to keep a painful story alive. You are here to write a new one where love feels like peace, where truth doesn't require apology, and where your worth is not tied to how much you can endure. You are not just healing for yourself. You're healing for every woman who didn't have the chance, every girl who was taught to stay small, every version of you that believed love had to be earned through suffering. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't owe your pain a permanent home. What you do owe yourself is the freedom to choose again. And this time, You choose you. There's a moment when you realize that the most radical thing you'll ever do is come home to yourself. Not the version of you that bends to be loved. Not the one who tiptoes around rejection or shrinks in the presence of indifference. The real you. The one who knows. Who always knew. But choosing yourself? It's not easy. It sounds simple when people say it, like a catchy quote you see online. But in practice, it's 1,000 quiet decisions that no one claps for. It's canceling the call you know will reopen a wound. It's standing in front of the mirror and facing the guilt, the fear, the ache, and deciding to stay anyway. Not for him, not for them, for you. Because you're not here to prove your worth. You're here to remember it. And the truth is, you were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong people. There's a version of you that still believes love has to be earned. That being chosen means you have to be smaller, quieter, easier. But that's not love. That's performance. And you're allowed to walk away from any stage that demands you dim your light to stay. Here's what they don't tell you. Choosing yourself won't always feel good at first. Sometimes it feels like grief. Sometimes it feels like loneliness. Sometimes it feels like leaving the only story you've ever known without a map for what comes next. But stay in that space. Because something beautiful happens in the silence. You begin to hear your own voice again. Not the voice of anxiety, not the voice of fear, the voice underneath. The one that says, you don't have to earn love. You are love. You begin to feel the difference between being needed and being nurtured, between being chased and being cherished, between attention and affection. And you realize peace was never boring. You were just taught to crave chaos. That's when everything starts to change. You stop waiting for someone else to pick you. You stop hoping for a message that proves you're worth remembering. You stop explaining your needs to people who have no interest in meeting them. Instead, you begin again, not in some grand, sweeping way, but in the little moments that add up. You sit alone and actually enjoy your own company. You choose rest over overgiving. You say no without guilt. You let your silence speak louder than your begging ever did. And slowly, that ache for the old pattern starts to fade. It's not that you stop caring. It's that you stop chasing what was never real to begin with. The day you choose yourself is not the day everything gets easier. It's the day you start getting honest about what you want, what you need, what you will no longer tolerate. It's not selfish to walk away from people who make you question your value. It's sacred. It's sacred to protect your peace. Sacred to say, I deserve more than confusion. Sacred to stop making excuses for people who never showed up. Sacred to rewrite the story where you are not just the love giver, but also the one who receives. You were never meant to be the supporting role in your own life. You were born to lead it with grace, with strength, with truth. So when the past calls, let it ring. When the urge to reach out creeps in, breathe. When the guilt tells you to stay, remind yourself, choosing yourself isn't abandonment, it's alignment. This is your homecoming, not to perfection, not to some idealized version of who you should be, but to the girl inside you who was always worthy, always enough, always whole. And maybe for the first time, you'll feel what it means to be held by your own heart, to stand in your own light, to not just survive but rise. This isn't the end of love. This is the beginning of real love, the kind that starts within and expands outward, the kind that doesn't shrink you, the kind that doesn't hurt to hold, the kind that waits until you no longer beg. So if you're here tired, raw, unsure but ready to stop explaining, ready to stop chasing, ready to return to yourself, stay with me. You're not alone in this. You never were. And the moment you choose you, over and over again, is the moment your real life begins. You thought this was about him, about the way he looked at you, the way he touched you, the way he disappeared without explanation and made you question your worth. But now you know the truth. This was never about him. It was about you. He was the mirror, the trigger, the spark. But the real fire, the one that's been burning quietly inside you for years, that fire belonged to you. What hurt the most wasn't losing him. It was realizing how much of yourself you gave away just to feel seen. And what you were really chasing wasn't love. It was a memory, a chance to rewrite the parts of you that were never held the way you deserved to be. This was about a pattern, a wound that kept dressing up in different names, a story you've been trying to finish, even though the ending was never yours to carry. But now, you're no longer in the story. You're the author. You've stopped begging for a seat at a table that was never built for you. You've stopped calling chaos love and silence devotion. You've stopped believing the lie that you had to earn what was already yours. You are not hard to love. You were just asking love to show up in places it never lived. And maybe now finally you can exhale. Not because everything is perfect, but because you've made peace with the most important truth of all. You do not need to be chosen by someone else to matter. You chose you. That is the moment everything changed. So if you felt seen in these words, if they touched something real in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this with the woman who needs to hear it. Leave a comment. Speak your truth. You never know who's listening, quietly waiting for someone else to say, "Me too." And if this is the beginning of your return to yourself, subscribe. This space is yours. This voice is yours. This life is yours. You're not late. You're right on time. And this time, it's not about him. It's about you. Always has been. Always will be.